The first night he came into the diner, Maribel thought he was there to kill someone. It was almost midnight. Rain pressing against the windows in long silver lines. The street outside empty except for a bus stop light flickering over wet pavement. The diner was 5 minutes from closing. Half the chairs were already upside down on the tables. Her son, Noah, sat in the last booth with a math worksheet, a red crayon in one hand, his cheek resting against his sleeve. The bell above the door gave one tired sound. Mara looked up from the register and saw a man in a charcoal coat step inside like the weather had opened for him. He did not shake off the rain. He did not look around like a customer deciding where to sit. He walked to the booth nearest the back wall, the one with a clear view of the counter, the front entrance, the hallway to the bathrooms, and the rear exit beside the kitchen. Then he sat down and folded his hands on the table. Noah looked up first. Children noticed silence before adults did. Mara wiped her hands on a towel and kept her voice even. Kitchens closed in 5. The man did not pick up the menu. He did not ask for coffee. His eyes moved once to Noah, then to the window, then back to the door. "I'm not eating," he said. His voice was low, controlled, almost tired. That made it worse. Men who came in shouting could be handled. Quiet men made the air change. Mara stood behind the counter, one hand near the phone beneath the register. She knew him. Everyone on that side of the city knew him, even if they pretended not to. Adrian Valle, a name people lowered their voices around. A man tied to black cars, shuttered clubs, men who disappeared from corners before police arrived. He should have been in private rooms behind guarded doors, not sitting in a failing diner under fluorescent lights, watching her 8-year-old son erase fractions with the side of his fist. Noah slid out of the booth before Mara could stop him. He walked across the sticky tile holding 3 crayons in his small hand. "You can use these if you're bored," he said. The diner went so quiet, Mara heard the old soda machine click behind her. Adrian Vale looked down at the crayons as if the boy had placed something fragile and impossible on the table. He did not smile. He only moved one hand, slow enough not to scare him, and pulled the crayons closer. "Thank you," he said. Outside, a black car rolled to the curb and stopped across the street. Its headlights went dark. Mara saw Adrian notice it without turning his head. His hand closed around the red crayon. Noah looked back at his mother, proud of himself for being polite to a stranger. Mara's throat tightened. Adrian rose from the booth before the car door opened. He placed a folded $50 bill beneath the untouched menu and said, very softly, "Take him home through the kitchen tonight." Mara did not move. Why? Adrian's eyes shifted to Noah, then toward the rain-dark window. Because someone out there came for the wrong reason. That was all he said. Then he walked out before the man in the parked car could cross the street. Noah stood beside the booth, holding his unfinished worksheet. "Mom," he whispered. Why did he look scared? Mara looked at the door Adrian had closed behind him. "He didn't," she said. But her hand was shaking when she turned the lock. By the time Adrian Vale returned the next night, Mara had already told herself he would not. Men like him did not come back to places like hers without purpose. And if that purpose had passed, so would he. The diner sat on the edge of a tired block between a laundromat and a pawn shop with cracked gold lettering. At night, the windows caught more reflection than street. Mara could see herself moving behind the counter, hair pinned badly, shoulders stiff, eyes too awake for a woman who had opened at 6 that morning. Noah came with her on late shifts because babysitters cost money she did not have. He knew the rules. Stay in the back booth. Finish homework. Do not open the door. Do not talk to customers unless Mom says it is okay. Most nights he obeyed. He was a quiet boy with watchful eyes. The kind of child who learned early how to read bills on a kitchen table and silence in his mother's face. Mara hated that he knew so much. She hated more that she needed him to. Atunci 11:40 și 7. The bell above the door rang. Adrian Vale entered in the same dark coat, rain shining on his shoulders. He did not glance at Mara first. He checked the front window, the 2 truckers near the counter, the old man asleep over pie, then the hallway by the bathrooms. Only after that did his eyes find Noah. The boy was bent over spelling words, lips moving silently. Adrian took the same booth, same seat, same angle, back to the wall, full room in view. Mara walked over with a coffee pot because standing still made her feel weaker. You planning to order tonight? She asked. Adrian looked at the pot, then at her. No. She set her jaw. Then you can't keep taking a table. He reached into his coat and placed a $100 bill flat on the formica. For the table, Mara did not touch it. This isn't that kind of place. I know what kind of place this is, he said. His voice stayed steady. That's why I'm here. The answer followed her back behind the counter and stayed there. She served coffee, wiped spills, packed the last slice of cherry pie into a box. Every few minutes she felt his presence without looking. He was not watching her body, not the way drunk men sometimes did when the hour got late and courage turned sour. He was watching patterns. The door when trucks passed, the window when headlights slowed, the reflection in the napkin dispenser when someone moved behind him. That did not comfort her. At midnight, Noah dropped his pencil. It rolled under Adrian's booth. Mara saw it happen and opened her mouth. But the boy was already on his knees reaching for it. Adrian moved first. One hand came down, not grabbing, just blocking the sharp metal edge beneath the seat before Noah's forehead could hit it. Slow, he said. Noah froze, then looked up at him. Thanks. Adrian handed him the pencil. Keep your head up when you crawl under things. It sounded less like advice than memory. Mara crossed the room fast. Noah, back to your booth. Her voice came out harder than she intended. Noah's face closed a little, but he obeyed. Adrian did not argue. He did not defend himself. That bothered her. Too. Guilty men explain too much. Dangerous men explain nothing. When she came to clear the empty table beside him, she kept the tray between them. Do you have children? She asked. It was not the question she meant to ask. His eyes stayed on the window. No. Then don't talk to mine like you know him. For the first time, Adrian looked directly at her. There was no softness in it. No apology arranged for comfort. I spoke because he was about to hurt himself. I decide who speaks to my son. You should. The answer landed without resistance. And somehow that made her angrier. She wanted him to push back so she could call the police. Make a scene. Force the night into something simple. Instead, he sat there like a locked door. The next 3 nights, repeated with small changes, Adrian arrived between 1142 and 1149. He sat in the same booth. He bought nothing. He left money Mara refused to take until the rent reminder in her bag made pride feel expensive. He never approached Noah. He never asked questions. But Noah, being Noah, began to glance over at him when he finished a page, as if the silent man in the corner had become part of the room's furniture. Mara noticed, and fear sharpened into something more personal. On Friday, a stranger came in 15 minutes before closing. He wore a delivery jacket with no package and stood too long near the gumball machine. Mara asked if he needed a table. He smiled without warmth and said he was looking for someone, Adrian, who had been still until then, lifted his eyes. The stranger saw him and stopped smiling. It was brief. Almost nothing. A missed step. A flicker in the face. Then he turned around and left without ordering. The bell above the door trembled after him. Mara watched Adrian stand. He did not hurry. He placed one hand on the table, pushed himself up, and walked to the window. Outside, the stranger crossed through the rain toward the alley beside the laundromat. Adrian waited until Noah looked down at his worksheet, then moved toward the door. Mara stepped into his path. Who was that Adrian's eyes remained on the glass? No one you want near your son. Her stomach tightened. What does that mean? He looked at her then. It means lock the rear door. She did. She hated that she did. But her feet carried her into the kitchen before pride could stop them. The rear door opened to a narrow service alley where trash bins overflowed beneath a rusted fire escape. Usually the lock stuck, unless she lifted the handle twice. That night, the bolt slid too easily. Mara stared at it. Fresh scratches marked the metal near the frame, thin and bright under the kitchen bulb. Someone had worked at it recently. Someone careful enough not to break it yet. When she returned to the front, Adrian was outside. Through the rain-blurred window, she saw only part of him beneath the awning, speaking to someone hidden by the angle of the wall. His posture had changed. Inside the diner, he was still, controlled, almost restrained. Outside, even in silence, he looked like a man other men measured distance from. The stranger in the delivery jacket backed away first. Then he disappeared around the corner. Adrian stayed under the awning until the street was empty. Mara turned and found Noah standing beside the counter, holding his backpack against his chest. "Mom," he said. "Is that man bad?" She wanted to say yes. It would have been easier. It would have made the world clean enough to explain. Instead, she looked at Adrian through the wet glass, at the way he stood between the diner and the alley, not looking in at them now, but out toward everything else. "I don't know," she said. Noah watched him for another second. "He always checks the street before we leave." That sentence stayed with her longer than it should have. After closing, Mara made Noah wait in the kitchen while she counted the drawer with unsteady fingers. She told herself she was being practical. She told herself men like Adrian Vale created danger just by standing near ordinary people. But when she opened the front door to leave, He was no longer at his booth. He was across the street beneath the dead bus stoplight. Face half-shadowed, hands in his coat pockets, watching the road in both directions. Mara locked the diner and held Noah's hand too tightly. "We're fine," she whispered. Though no one had asked, Adrian did not approach. He only gave one small nod toward the side street, warning her away from her usual route. She should have ignored him. She should have taken her son home the way she always did. Instead, she turned left, toward the brighter avenue, where the convenience store stayed open all night. Behind them, somewhere near the laundromat alley, a car engine started and then cut off. Noah looked back once. "He's still there," he said. Mara kept walking. "Don't stare. I think he's making sure." She wanted to tell him that dangerous men did not make sure children got home safe. They collected debts, made threats, broke rooms apart, turned people into warnings. But the words would not come. The city around them felt too cold, too awake, and for the first time since Adrian Vale had entered her diner and bought nothing, Mara wondered whether the thing she feared most had been sitting inside to keep something worse outside. By the second week, Adrian Vale had become part of the diner's late-night shape. Mara hated how naturally that happened. The old truckers still came after freight runs. Nurses from St. Jude Hospital still picked up black coffee before dawn. Rain still gathered in dirty ribbons against the glass when storms rolled over the block. And every night, sometime before midnight, Adrian entered in silence, took the rear booth, and watched the room like a man listening for something most people could not hear. He never asked for food. Mara had stopped trying. He left folded bills under untouched menus, enough to cover the table and more. At first, she slid them back across the formica toward him. Then the freezer compressor failed. Noah needed school shoes. And pride started looking like another unpaid bill. She took the money once. After that, she stopped speaking. When she pocketed it, Adrian never acknowledged it. He only kept his eyes on doors, mirrors, passing headlights, and reflections that moved in polished metal before bodies crossed the room. Noah adjusted first. Children built routines around strange weather faster than adults. He began doing homework at the booth closest to Adrian's, though still behind the invisible line Mara kept in her head. Some nights he whispered spelling words aloud, while Adrian sat in silence. Some nights he colored spaceships or crooked houses. Adrian never leaned in, never reached, never asked childish questions to soften himself. He simply remained there, a hard stillness beside crayons and school paper, as if he understood how close to stand without stepping over it. One slow Tuesday, Noah held up a page with a badly drawn wolf wearing a necktie. "That's you," he said. Mara nearly dropped a coffee mug. Adrian looked at the paper. "Why?" Noah shrugged. "You look like you don't smile." One trucker laughed into his pie. Mara opened her mouth to stop it. But Adrian answered first. "That's fair." Noah frowned, thinking hard. Then he added a tiny umbrella over the wolf's head. "Now you look less angry." Adrian studied the drawing longer than he should have. "Still inaccurate," he said. But his voice had gone quieter. Mara watched that exchange from behind the counter and felt something worse than fear. Familiarity. She did not want her son measuring comfort beside a man tied to whispered violence. Later, while Noah stacked napkin holders, she walked to Adrian's booth with a refill pot she did not need. "He's getting used to you." Adrian kept his gaze on the front window. "He's getting used to routine." "You're not routine. Right now." "I am." She set the pot down harder than intended. "You still haven't told me why you're here." His jaw shifted once. Because some doors stay safer when someone is watching them. That answer sat under her skin all night. When closing time came, Noah tripped over a loose mat near the soda machine and scraped his palm against tile. It was small, barely blood, but he sucked in one sharp breath before he cried. Mara was already moving. So was Adrian. He reached the boy first, then stopped himself half a step away, crouching without touching him. "Show her your hand," he said. His voice was low, steady, meant for frightened things. Noah obeyed. Maragnet, cleaning the scrape, while Adrian remained where he was, still as if held there by his own restraint. Noah sniffed and whispered, "I'm okay." Adrian nodded once, then stand up. It was such a plain sentence that Mara almost missed the softness buried under discipline. She looked up at him. "You always talk like that," Adrian rose. "Only when panic wastes time." He returned to his booth. No extra concern. No performance. Just distance again. Mara wrapped Noah's hand and felt a quiet unease she could not explain. Dangerous men were easier to hate when they behaved like monsters. 3 nights later, Noah carried over a multiplication worksheet and stood near Adrian's table. "I hate 8s." Mara started forward, but Adrian looked up first. "Then stop fighting all of them at once." Noah blinked. "What?" Adrian pointed to the first row without touching the paper. "Do 1. Noah solved it. Adrian tapped the second. Then another. Mara stayed frozen behind the counter, tray in hand. Within minutes, Noah was smiling because the page looked smaller. Adrian pushed the worksheet back. Big problems shrink when they stop arriving together. Noah nodded as if this was profound. Maybe it was. After Noah returned to his booth, Mara walked over with sharp control in every step. "Don't teach my son." Adrian's eyes lifted. "I taught him multiplication. You're making yourself part of his life." "No." His voice stayed level. "I'm keeping him calm." "Why does that matter to you this time?" Adrian looked directly at her. Sleepless eyes, dark beneath the diner lights. For a second, something older than fatigue crossed his face. Memory. Regret. Hard to name. Because frightened children move unpredictably. The answer was practical enough to sting. Mara hated that she believed it. Then the pattern broke. It started with sound. A metallic knock in the alley behind the diner just after 11. Mara heard it through the kitchen wall while washing cups. She dried her hands and checked the rear door. Locked. Noah was in his booth. Adrian was already standing before she returned to the front room. "Stay inside," he said. It was the first direct instruction he had ever given her. She bristled instantly. "This is my diner. Then keep it standing." He stepped outside through the front door. Rain had started again. Thin and cold. Through the glass, Mara saw Adrian cross the sidewalk and stop near the alley mouth beside the laundromat. 2 figures stood deeper in shadow. She could only catch fragments. Movement. Shoulders. One cigarette flare. Adrian's posture changed into something colder. Built for violence, without needing to show it. One of the men took half a step forward. Adrian did not move. The man stepped back first. Minutes later, both shadows disappeared into the rain. He returned to his booth, as if he had gone outside for air. His coat was wet. His knuckles were split. Fresh blood darkened one finger. Noah noticed immediately. "Did you fall?" Adrian looked at his own hand. Then at the child. Something rough got in the way. Noah considered this. That sounds fake. Even Mara almost laughed. But tension held too tightly in her chest. She grabbed the first aid tin from beneath the counter and crossed to his booth. "Give me your hand." Adrian did not move. "Unnecessary. You're bleeding onto my table." He held her gaze for a second, then slowly extended his hand. Up close, the damage was cleaner than a drunken fight. Split skin, bruising already forming near the knuckles, controlled force. Mara wiped blood with alcohol. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. Noah leaned from his booth. Fascinated. "Did you punch someone?" Mara shot him a look. Adrian answered before she could. "Yes. Honest. Flat. No pride." Noah stared. Why Adrian's eyes shifted toward the front window? Because he kept walking. The diner went quiet enough for rain to sound louder than traffic. Mara wrapped gauze around his hand. Who were they? Adrian withdrew his hand once she finished. Men who ask the wrong questions. "About what? About your son?" The words landed heavy and clean. Noah looked up. Mara's fingers tightened around the first aid tin. "Why would anyone ask about my son?" Adrian did not answer. Instead, he stood and walked to the window. Outside, a sedan idled half a block away under a broken streetlight. He watched it for a long second. Then he said, "How many routes do you use to take him home?" Mara's breath thinned. What answer? She hated how quickly fear made obedience feel logical. Usually 2, Main Street, or the side road near the pharmacy. Adrian nodded once. "Change them." "Who are you to tell me that?" He turned. For the first time since entering her diner weeks ago, there was unmistakable steel in his face. Quiet. Lethal. Deeply controlled. The man who knows someone is mapping your habits. Noah lowered his pencil. Mara stepped closer. Anger finally breaking through fear. "Then tell me what this is." Adrian's voice stayed low. "Not yet. You expect me to trust that?" "No." His eyes shifted to Noah. "I expect you to stay alive long enough to hate me properly." Then he sat back down. Same booth. Same poster. Blood drying beneath white gauze. Outside, the sedan remained still. That night, after Adrian left, Mara locked both doors and checked every window twice. She walked Noah home through the brighter avenue instead of the alley road. Rainwater collected in potholes like black mirrors. Halfway there, Noah tugged her sleeve. "Mom?" She kept walking. When he looked back toward the diner, he was scared tonight. The same thought from weeks ago returned with more certainty. Mara gripped his hand. "Why do you think that?" Noah shrugged. "Because he kept watching behind us." She looked over her shoulder. At the far corner, beyond the laundromat sign, A car turned slowly without headlights and disappeared into the dark street behind them. Adrian was nowhere visible. That should have calmed her. Instead, it left the night feeling wider, less protected. For the first time, Mara realized his silence had not been the strangest thing. It was his consistency. Every night. Same seat. Same watch. Same exit, only after she and Noah were gone. And now he had come in bleeding. Still taken his place. Still watched the doors. Still stayed. Somewhere between fear and exhausted logic, a harder truth began pressing into her chest. Adrian Vale had never been watching her son like prey. He had been watching everything around him like something expected to come. Mara did not sleep that night. She lay on the thin mattress beside Noah's room and listened to the pipes complain in the walls, to the neighbor's television murmuring through plaster, to every car that slowed outside their building. At 3 a.m, she got up and checked the chain on the door. At 4. She moved a chair beneath the knob. Bidam. She had decided the only thing more dangerous than not knowing why Adrian Vale had come into their lives was letting her son grow comfortable around him. Noah noticed the change before breakfast. His backpack sat by the door, but Mara took his homework folder from it and placed it on the kitchen table. "You're staying with Mrs. Alvarez tonight," she said. Noah looked up from his cereal. "But it's diner night." "Not anymore. Because of Mr. Adrian." She hated that he had given the man a child's title. Small and ordinary. As if danger could be softened by manners. "Because I said so." Noah looked down into his bowl. "He watches the street," he said quietly. Mara's voice came sharper than she meant. "That is exactly the problem. Mrs. Alvarez lived 2 floors below and watched neighborhood children for cash when she could. She was kind, heavy-footed, half-deaf in one ear, and safer than a diner full of strangers. That was what Mara told herself while walking Noah downstairs before her shift. He held his backpack tight against his chest and did not complain after the first block of silence. At the door, he turned and asked, "Will you tell him I'm okay?" Mara froze. "No." His face fell in a way that made her feel cruel before she could defend herself. The diner felt wrong without him. His booth stayed empty under the humming light. His crayons remained in a chipped mug behind the counter because Mara had forgotten to pack them. Every time the bell rang, she looked up too fast. Customers came and went. A nurse cried quietly into coffee. 2 college boys argued over fries. The old man who slept over pie asked where the kid was. And Mara said he had school early. It was a normal answer. It sounded like a lie anyway. Adrian arrived at 1:45. He stopped just inside the door. His eyes went to Noah's booth first. Then the counter. Then the hallway. Then Mara. The room seemed to tighten around the absence. He did not sit immediately. "Where is he?" Mara wiped the same clean spot until the towel squeaked against Formica. "Safe." Adrian's expression did not change. But the stillness in him grew colder. "Where away from here?" That wasn't the question. She met his eyes. "You don't get to ask questions about my son." For a moment, Adrian said nothing. The old lights buzzed overhead. Rainwater dripped from his coat to the tile. Then he stepped closer to the counter. Not threatening. Not pleading. simply occupying the space with authority that made other customers lower their voices without understanding why. Did anyone see where you took him? Mara's pulse moved once. Hard. I was careful. Careful people repeat habits. You don't know me. I know fear makes people choose familiar doors. His voice dropped. Tell me where he is. Mara picked up the phone beneath the register. Leave. Adrian looked at the phone, then back at her. Calling police will not make this safer. Maybe it will make you leave. It will make them ask why a patrol car came here. Then the wrong people will know you are frightened. The logic angered her because it sounded true. She hated him for standing there with split knuckles and controlled eyes, making danger feel practical. You are the wrong people, she said. He absorbed it without flinching. Tonight, I'm the one still inside. He left without sitting. No money on the table. No silent watch from the booth. The bell above the door shook once behind him. Mara told herself relief would come. It did not. The diner felt exposed, as if a heavy door had been opened and left that way. She worked through the last hour with her eyes lifting to the window every few seconds. A white van passed twice. A man in a dark baseball cap stood under the laundromat awning too long. By closing time, every ordinary detail had sharpened into warning. When she locked the front door, her phone buzzed. Mrs. Alvarez's name glowed on the screen. Mara answered too quickly. The older woman's voice came through strained and apologetic. Mara. Honey. There is a man downstairs. He says he is from the school. Something about Noah's emergency papers. Mara's hand went cold around the keys. Do not open the door. I didn't. But Noah heard his name. He's scared. Mara was already moving. She grabbed her coat and ran through the kitchen toward the rear exit, then stopped. The rear door stood open by 2 inches. For one frozen second, her mind refused the shape of it. She had locked it. She knew she had. The alley outside was black. Rain tapping metal lids and broken crates. Her breath caught high in her throat. Then a figure moved beyond the trash bins. Mara backed away. Heart slamming. Her phone slipped against her cheek. Mrs. Alvarez was still talking. Mara whispered, "Lock your bathroom door. Take Noah inside. Now." The line crackled. Then the diner's front bell rang behind her. Though the door had been locked, Adrian stepped in through the front entrance with a key Mara had never given him. Behind him, 2 men in dark coats spread out across the empty diner without speaking. Mara's fear snapped into fury. Get out. Adrian did not look at her first. He looked at the rear door. The open gap. The rain beyond it. His face hardened. Too late. The words were quiet. They landed like a hand closing around her lungs. Where is the boy? She hesitated. Adrian turned fully then, and the restraint in his voice thinned. Mara. Where? Alvarez. 2nd floor. Apartment 2B. She barely finished before Adrian moved. Not rushed. Worse than rushed. Exact. One gesture sent one man through the kitchen toward the alley, another toward the street. Adrian came around the counter and took her arm only long enough to pull her away from the open rear door. His grip was firm. Careful. Gone. As soon as she was clear. Stay behind me. Mara tried to pull free. "I'm going to my son." "Yes," he said. "Behind me?" The apartment building was 4 blocks away. But it felt farther in the rain. Adrian drove them in a black sedan that seemed to appear from nowhere. One of his men silent behind the wheel. Another car following without headlights. Mara sat rigid beside him. Phone pressed to her ear. Listening to Mrs. Alvarez whisper that Noah was in the bathroom, that someone was still knocking, that the hallway light had gone out. Adrian spoke once into his own phone. "No sirens. No uniforms. South stairwell first." Mara turned on him. "You don't get to run this like one of your problems." His eyes stayed forward. "This is one of my problems. He is my son. That's why you're in the car." She wanted to strike him. She wanted to scream until the whole city woke. But fear had narrowed everything to Mrs. Alvarez's shaking breath and Noah's silence behind a locked bathroom door. Adrian looked at her then. "Briefly, when we enter, do not call his name until I tell you." "Why?" "Because if they hear where your voice goes, they'll know where he is." The building entrance stood under a broken awning. Rain spilling in sheets from one torn corner. The front door was propped open with a brick. Mara saw it and nearly ran. Adrian caught her wrist. "Look at me." She hated how steady his voice was. "He is alive. They need him alive." The sentence was meant to calm her. It nearly destroyed her. Need him for what? Adrian's eyes went dark. Then he released her and entered first. The lobby smelled of wet coats and old mail. The elevator doors were stuck half open. Lights dead inside. Somewhere above them, wood cracked against a frame. Mara flinched. Adrian did not. He moved toward the stairs, one hand low near his coat. No wasted motion. No visible fear. On the second-floor landing, the hallway was dim, except for emergency light bleeding red over stained carpet. Mrs. Alvarez's door stood closed. A man in a school district windbreaker stood outside it. Holding a clipboard he had no reason to carry at midnight. He turned when he saw Adrian. The clipboard lowered. His other hand moved under his jacket. Adrian crossed the distance before Mara understood what she was seeing. No shout. No dramatic struggle. One hard movement pinned the man against the wall. Another took the weapon from his waistband and set it on the floor beneath Adrian's shoe. The man's face twisted with pain. But Adrian's voice stayed almost conversational. "Who sent you?" The man spit blood onto the carpet. Adrian leaned closer. "Wrong hallway for bravery." Mara pressed both hands to her mouth to keep from making sound. Inside the apartment, Noah cried out once. That broke her. Adrian's head turned sharply. From the stairwell behind them came sudden movement. A second man appeared on the landing below. Looking up, Adrian shoved the first man down, kicked the weapon back toward one of his own men, and put himself between Mara and the stairs. The second man saw him clearly now. His face changed. Recognition. Fear. Calculation. Val? The man said. Adrian's reply was flat. Leave. The man smiled with too many teeth. You guarding waitresses now. Adrian stepped down one stair. Just one. The hallway seemed to lose air. I said leave. The man's hand twitched toward his pocket. Adrian moved faster than Mara could follow. There was a crack of impact, a body hitting the wall, a choked breath swallowed by rain and old plaster. It was over before it became a fight. Adrian stood above him. Coat dark, face calm. Lethal control restored. Mrs. Alvarez opened her door with the chain still on. Eyes wide and wet. Mara pushed forward. Adrian let her pass. Only after one glance confirmed the hall was held. The chain slid free. Noah came out of the bathroom barefoot, clutching his backpack. Face parle. Mara dropped to her knees and pulled him against her so hard he made a small sound. "I'm sorry," she whispered into his hair. "I'm sorry. Baby." Noah's hands gripped the back of her coat. "The man knew my name," he said. Adrian stood in the doorway, not entering until Mara looked at him. His gaze moved over Noah quickly, checking for injury, then away before the concern could become something the room might name. Noah lifted his head. "Did you come because Mom told you Adrian's jaw worked once?" "I came because I should have known they would move tonight." The answer meant nothing to Noah and too much to Mara. She rose slowly, keeping one hand on her son's shoulder. "Now," she said, "you tell me everything." They took Noah downstairs through the back stairwell, shielded between Mara, Mrs. Alvarez, and two of Adrian's men. Outside, the rain had softened to mist, but the street felt ruined. Mara saw the fake school windbreaker shoved into the trunk of another car. She saw Adrian speak to one of his men, quiet and precise, and the man nod like a soldier receiving coordinates. No one called police. No one raised their voice. That disturbed her almost as much as the attack. Violence had happened around Adrian like a door closing. He brought them to the diner because it was the only place Mara could still understand. The lights were on. The chairs remained upside down. The rear door had been repaired badly but locked from inside. Now, one of his men standing beside it. Noah sat in his old booth wrapped in Mrs. Alvarez's cardigan, drinking water through a straw with both hands. Mara stood across from Adrian near the counter. Her voice was low from fear. "Why him?" Adrian did not answer quickly. That was how she knew the truth would hurt. His father carried something before he died, Adrian said. Mara's face went still. Noah's father was a mechanic. He fixed cars for men who were not mechanics. She shook her head once. Hard. No. Adrian did not soften the blow with pity. He came across records. Names. Payments. Route. Enough to hurt people who have survived by staying invisible. Mara's stomach turned. He never told me, because he thought silence would protect you. Adrian looked toward Noah, then back at her. It didn't end with him. Mara gripped the counter until her knuckles whitened. "You knew this whole time. I knew men were looking for the last piece of his life. My son is not a piece of anything." The words came out sharp enough to cut. Adrian accepted them. "No, he is a child. That is why I sat in that booth." Noah looked over at the sound of their voices. Eyes red but alert. Adrian lowered his voice further. "They believe your husband hid something before he died. They believe Noah may know where, without understanding what he knows." Mara's breath broke. He was 4. Memory doesn't always arrive as words. Adrian's eyes moved to the chipped mug of crayons behind the counter. "A plus," A song. A drawing. Something small enough for adults to miss. She turned away, then turned back. Anger returning because anger was easier than terror. And you decided to watch us like some private guard dog instead of telling me Adrian's face stayed controlled. But something in his eyes hardened against himself. If I told you too early, you would run. If you ran, they would find the movement. And if I kept him away from you, they used the opening. Silence followed. Heavy. Cruel. Accurate. Mara looked at Noah. At the small bandage still wrapped around his palm from the fall days earlier. At his backpack sitting beside him like it could protect him from men with fake clipboards and dark cars. Her voice dropped. Are they coming again? Adrian did not lie. Yes. Noah heard that. His hand tightened around the glass. Adrian turned toward him then. Careful with every inch of movement. But not through you. The child stared at him. What does that mean? Adrian walked only as close as the edge of the booth. He did not sit. He did not reach. It means they made a mistake thinking you were easier to scare than me. Mara felt the words move through the room differently than comfort. They were not gentle. They were steadier than gentle. Noah looked at his mother first, asking without asking whether he could believe this man. Mara swallowed. She did not know the answer, but she knew who had stood between the hallway and her son. Adrian turned back to Mara. You can hate me after sunrise. Tonight. You listen. And if I don't, he glanced toward the windows where rain caught the diner lights. Then I will still keep men outside this building until I stop breathing. It should have sounded dramatic. It did not. It sounded like logistics, like a weather report, like something already decided. Mara looked at his bandaged hand, at the tired authority in his face, at the child behind him trying not to cry again. For the first time since he had walked into her diner and bought nothing, Mara understood the shape of him clearly. Adrian Vale was not safe. He would never be safe in the way ordinary people meant it. But there, under failing fluorescent lights, with her son alive behind him and the street held quiet by men who feared his name, she understood something else too. Safe had never meant harmless. Sometimes it meant the dangerous thing had chosen where to stand. Adrian Vale did not leave after that night. He changed form. For weeks, he had sat inside Mara's diner like a quiet warning hidden under ordinary light. Now he moved openly, and the neighborhood felt it before anyone said his name. 2 black sedans began rotating at opposite ends of the block. Men in plain jackets drank coffee. They never finished near the laundromat and bus stop. Delivery vans no longer idled too long outside. Faces that once lingered near windows learned to keep walking. Mara opened the diner at dawn and understood immediately that Adrian had stopped protecting them quietly. One man stood near the alley pretending to smoke, but his eyes never left the street. Another sat by the front window with coffee gone cold in his hand. Customers noticed. So did the people outside. A delivery van slowed, then kept moving. A man who had lingered near the laundromat for 3 nights no longer appeared. Adrian had changed the block without touching it. Mara hated that part of her felt safer before she admitted why. Noah returned to the diner 3 days later. That had been Mara's hardest decision. Keeping him hidden forever would teach fear faster than safety. She walked him in herself, one hand firm on his shoulder. His old booth waited under the same humming fluorescent light. Homework folder stacked neatly beside the napkin holder. He paused at the door and searched the room before stepping fully inside. Mara felt her chest tighten at that small, learned habit. Children copied survival without asking permission. Adrian was already there. Same booth. Same line of sight. Same untouched menu. This time he did not pretend distance. He looked directly at Noah and gave one quiet nod. Noah hesitated, then nodded back before sitting down. Mara watched every movement. Adrian did not approach. He returned his attention to the front window and the mirrored chrome edge of the pie case. Respecting space had become its own kind of language between them. That night, Noah drew again. Mara saw it before Adrian did. A child's sketch in blunt red and blue crayon. A square building with a long garage door. A crooked yellow sign. 3 dark circles beside it. Tio. Adrian's eyes sharpened when Noah slid the paper toward himself absent-mindedly. "What's that?" he asked. Noah shrugged. "Dad's old workplace." Mara froze. Her husband had died 4 years earlier. Noah rarely spoke about him unless sleep. Adrian stood slowly. "Where was it?" Mara stepped between him and the booth instantly. "He's tired." Adrian's voice stayed level. "I know." His eyes remained on the drawing. "That sign, has he drawn it before?" Mara's breath thinned. She remembered scraps of paper from years ago. Little circles, boxes, roads. She had thought they were children's nonsense. Noah tapped the paper. "Dad said, don't forget the yellow bird." Adrian's jaw tightened once. Mara understood then how small memory could become lethal. She took Noah's drawing and folded it once. "He is not helping anyone tonight." Adrian did not argue. "Then move him." She stared. "What?" His eyes shifted to the street. They may already know they failed once. If they were watching for memory triggers, this changes everything. Outside, one of his men touched his earpiece sharply and looked toward the corner. Adrian's gaze hardened. They moved faster than I expected. The first sound was glass. The diner's side window shattered inward in a spray of cold rain and bright fragments. Customers screamed and dropped low. Mara grabbed Noah before fear finished arriving and dragged him beneath the counter. Adrian moved before the glass stopped falling. One of his men overturned a table into cover. Another sealed the rear kitchen path. There was no wild panic, only hard, trained movement under fluorescent light and broken weather. A dark SUV had stopped outside. 2 men stepped out. One never made it past the hood before Adrian's people forced them back into the street. Mara could only hear pieces. Boots on wet pavement. Heavy impacts. Sharp shouted orders swallowed by rain. Adrian remained near the entrance, controlling sight lines. One hand low beneath his coat. Body angled between the diner and everyone inside it. Lethal. Still. Exact. Noah pressed into Mara's ribs beneath the counter. "Mom." She held the back of his head. "Stay down." Her voice trembled despite her grip. Across from them, Adrian crouched just enough to see beneath the counter edge. "Look at me." Noah did. Adrian's voice dropped lower. "Count backwards from 10. The child blinked hard. "Why?" "Because panic wastes time." Noah swallowed and started counting. 9, 8, 7. Outside, a body struck metal. Cease. 5. Rain hit broken glass like handfuls of gravel. 4, 3. Mara realized her own breathing had matched his. 2, 1. Silence. Then Adrian stood. He stepped outside without haste. Mara could only see him through fractured window edges and reflections of wet streetlight. One man was down near the curb. Another limped toward the SUV before stopping when Adrian reached him. Even wounded, the man looked up with hatred sharpened by fear. Adrian spoke too low to hear. The man answered louder. "The boy remembers." Adrian's face did not move. The man added something else. Then Adrian looked once toward the diner window where Noah remained hidden behind Mara. The man understood his mistake. He backed away. He got into the SUV. It left. Adrian let it go. When he came back inside, rain darkened his coat. Glass dust on one shoulder. Mara rose slowly with Noah still behind her. "Why didn't you stop them?" Adrian removed one shard from his sleeve. "Because men who flee speak to men who wait." He looked toward the sketch still on the counter. "Now they'll lead us where they thought your husband buried what they wanted." Mara started, even under threat. He was still calculating protection, 3 steps forward. The diner emptied after that. Police sirens passed somewhere farther uptown, but never came here. Adrian's men boarded the shattered side window with rough plywood before dawn. Noah sat in his booth again, shaken but upright, wrapped in Mara's cardigan. Adrian returned to his old seat across the room, same untouched menu beneath his hand. The shape of the night slowly settled back into something almost ordinary. Mara carried coffee to his table. For the first time, she placed it down without being asked. Adrian looked at the cup, then at her. "Staying near me has a cost." His voice held no warning, only fact. Mara folded her arms, tired enough to stop pretending she could still measure safety by clean rules. "I know." Her eyes shifted toward Noah finishing homework beneath boarded glass and weak diner light. "I still know where you stood." Adrian said nothing. Noah looked up from his worksheet. "Are you still not buying food?" Adrian looked at the child. A long beat passed. "Apparently not." Noah pushed half a wrap sandwich across the table anyway. Adrian studied it, like he had once studied crayons. Then he took it. Outside, rain slid over the street in thin silver lines. Inside, the diner remained small, chipped, imperfect, and guarded. Adrian Vale had come every night and bought nothing. Now Mara finally understood. He had never come for her son. He had come to make sure no one else did. And if a dangerous man chooses to stand between your fragile life and the dark waiting outside it, sometimes survival begins exactly there. If you want to keep walking where protection still costs something, stay near the next door. We open. Because somewhere beyond another rain-soaked street, someone else may not know yet who is already standing watch.